Hello, hello. I am Kaci Brown. Welcome back to Amplify My Impact podcast. And I am thrilled to dive into this episode with you because I feel like we're settling in, we're finding our stride. And this episode is a complete gloves off sort of a anthem from my heart to yours. And, the first few episodes, I sort of laid the foundation and sort of shared my anchor points of hopefully to help you have your own foundation in taking this next leap of faith to amplify our impact together and what that means, and letting some things go, stepping into the new future and prioritizing our zone of genius, our gifts and talents, and leveraging every ounce of energy, of time, of resources that we have to make the impact that has been laid on our hearts. I 100% wholeheartedly believe that where you are called, you are equipped. So it's not so much getting stuck in the how. It is literally just hearing the whisper to your soul, the calling of your heart, stepping up one step at a time, one bold, blind leap of faith at a time, and continually moving forward. For some reason, these lessons sometimes need to be repeated. I've had to learn them over and over and over in my life. And, after wrapping up the initial foundation series, I literally have a whole page of notes that just poured out of my heart. And it's one of those things. And I shared in planning the podcast and the vision for the community, I find myself looping back to what it should look like, what other people's communities look like, what other people's podcasts look like. And I continually have to remind myself that I get to be 100% me. I get to be wholeheartedly who I am, wearing my heart on my sleeve, sometimes doing things like quick, dirty, messy, and just getting it out there in a way that resonates with people, sometimes reminds others that it doesn't have to be all beautifully polished to perfection. That's the whole point of Brene Brown's book, Gifts of Imperfection. And it's continually been a lesson in my life, even with mapping things out. A few years ago, the word surrender just came into my consciousness and on my heart. I was doing yoga. I was kind of like settling my mind, grounding myself in my intentions, figuring out the plan for the week, and just, embracing my creative white space and listening, to myself. And the word surrender just kept showing up. And then curiously, I asked, okay, then what? And it always makes me laugh. But it's like God answered, like my spirit answered, whereas like show up and serve. And that literally has been my guiding path and my roadmap to stepping into one thing after another. Like surrender, show up and serve. That is literally my blueprint. And so when I mapped out this episode following the last episode that I had shared with you, I wrote the trust economy of 2025. And I wrote that because it's been on my heart in me, like continually getting into my own way and blocking my own path of progression, and looking at someone else or comparing myself to the way someone else did it, or where I should be and what I shouldn't be doing, and the setbacks and the heartbreaks and the complete hard lessons learned of 2024 and 2025. Over the last few weeks, I've seen more and more people that I love and respect post and share online a little bit of the hard and the messy and the vulnerability of that post just completely resonating with people. And I wrote that trust economy of 2025, because I really feel like we are at like the peak, the jumping off point of an economy and market that's been building for years, of being so tired of shiny marketing, of all of the psychological manipulation. Like, people know when they're being sold to, when they're being marketed. And honestly, I am a jaded marketer. I look at the psychological cues and I try to like untangle the heart, the mission, the message, and the real true intention. And in all of my being, I want to truly be a problem solver and improve people's life. That is literally like the minimum bar of anything that I put my time and effort into. Is it truly going to make an impact? Is it going to move someone's life or business forward? Is what I'm saying, what I'm creating, a solution? And if it's just like what everything else is out there in the marketplace, just more of a frustration and half-solved problem, I want nothing to do with it. Though a lot of companies and individuals have made billions off of that model. I just refuse to. So I want to talk to you about, this is what I've written down: real human interaction, vulnerability specifically. The first coaching program that I created, I still remember like curling my hair and getting ready for that morning and kind of doing my breathing. I got my essential oils. Like, I was getting nervous because I really wanted to serve. I really wanted to make a difference in these businesses. And at this particular program, it was for Facebook ads, and in marketing in a way that allowed people to be themselves, to embrace their authenticity, their quirkiness, and let go of the comparison and step into the gifts and the talents and the expertise that they have had with their experience and the way that they want to impact and solve problems in the world. And so I was literally just kind of going over like how I was going to welcome everybody, what that looks like, what the agenda for the first call. And just like that divine whisper to my soul with the surrender, show up, and serve, I was thinking about how I wanted them to be brave, and just focusing on that for a few minutes as I curled my hair and let the curls cool, and just went through that process of getting ready. And in a span of like 20 minutes, I looked at, what does being brave really mean? And at that point in time, I had done a lot of studying and frameworks and formatting and acronyms and all of those things. So it's like I was in that immersive experience of, can I create an acronym from brave? And sure as heck, I was able to in just a few minutes. And so I think sometimes we can just lean in and trust our intuition and not overcomplicate things, because still to this day, and this was probably about 6 years ago, I still teach the BRAVE framework. And I want to share it with you right now as we get into this episode, because I think it's more relevant than ever. And so B is for absolutely believe that the way that they're going to solve the problem, the way that they're going to serve their audience, their dream clients, their dream customers, is the actual best solution with the best intentions of creating change and contributing to someone's life for the better. They had to believe it with conviction, with their soul, with everything in their being. And when they believe that, it would allow them to step into being realistic about their timeline, about what they were going to be able to accomplish, realistic with themselves and where they were at on their journey. If this was brand new for them, setting themselves up for success in a way that they're not setting the bar of expectations and perfectionism way too high. So being real in a way that they were opening up the opportunity and allowing themselves to be a real human, to possibly do it messy and to actually make mistakes, right? So B, completely believe. R, realistic about where they were and what they were creating in their journey, in their evolution. A is for their authentic self. A lot of us compare each other with the Russell Brunsons, the Amy Porterfields, the Marie Forleos, and we look at what they've been able to achieve, and sometimes we mirror them or we model their success. But the thing is, you are you. And the more that we can embrace our unique us-ism, and for me to be the full Cassie, where I wear my heart on my sleeve. I am an empath. I am a mom of four. We love Disney. I truly care about people. I am driven by impact. If I acted from any other center or tried to model someone else besides me, I would lose, honestly, one of my greatest competitive edges, and that is being uniquely myself. So, the authenticity factor that we all have in our businesses and our marketing is we are the only one of us in the world. There may be someone else who solves problems similar to me. There may be someone else who does business growth and marketing consulting. There may be someone else who does what you do. Think of all of the doctors and the lawyers and the surgeons and the you name it in the world. They're all solving problems, and there's enough business for all of us, but there's someone that's going to resonate uniquely with the way that you position yourself, the way that you share, the way that you communicate. Don't take that away from your dream clients or the people who are out there seeking the solution that you have, and they're just waiting for someone to share and speak in their language, and that is your authentic self and the way that you communicate. And if you show up as yourself, like the imposter syndrome, the intimidation that we all feel, like you will be more yourself and more true to the codes of your DNA and your being than you've ever been. So you can't fake your true personality. That's just something that you don't need to waste your time and energy on. So be more authentic, 100%. That's in this trust economy. Believe you have the best product or service. Be realistic with yourself. Be authentic. And if you do that, you can confidently share vulnerably. I'm going to spend a little extra time here on vulnerability because I think it was the greatest accidental discovery I've ever made when I was first coaching in the 2 Comma Club X program with Russell Brunson. And I had my cohort. There were 600 people in this program, and we rotated through cohorts of 100. And I realized very quickly that a lot of people were getting stuck because of the unknown of they didn't know if their product or service or their launch was going to work. There was an open opportunity for rejection and getting it wrong or feeling like a failure, or maybe they didn't know as much. Like the comparison syndrome was incredible in the way that it would actually paralyze people from moving forward. And on one of the sessions, I just found myself sharing my first launch of my first coaching program and how I moved forward, but on all outside accounts, it technically failed. I launched an 8-week coaching program for $97. I think I sold it to maybe 3 people. I gave it away to 5 more so that we would at least have like a consistent cohort of 8 people. And I coached my heart out. I could have easily looked at that and been like, oh, I only sold 2 or 3 and refunded and then went back to the drawing board. But the success and the win was proving to myself that I could do it and creating the opportunity for transformation for those people who showed up. That was truly like my greatest step in the direction of success. And when I shared with them that I did it anyway, all of them, like they found that inspirational. But it was one of those things that I literally never wanted to share with anyone because the numbers weren't impressive. It was one of my lowest points, like internally talking and telling myself, like, nobody wants this. You didn't market it correctly. Like, all of the things that I could have just given into and trash talked myself and thrown up for experience, but like as a failure, became one of the greatest representations of my successes because it was a stepping stone in the road of figuring out my decide, declare, do. Where it's like, once I decided that I was going to do something, I was 100% following through, which also opens the door to my theory of impact one. It was a commitment to myself that I made on anything that I put out there, that if one person said yes to, I was fulfilling on it. Because at the point I was at and where I was growing and figuring out my own frameworks, how I was going to serve my own offers, I needed reps. And I needed reps that I could fulfill on and not give myself a backdoor exit to. So that was where I realized the power of vulnerability, the power of sharing some of the things where we felt like we didn't want anyone else to know about us, especially in business. Another example of vulnerability, I think that was at such a pivotal lesson in my life, was when Adam came home from inpatient rehab and we had a party for him. One of my girlfriends came over to me and she said, Cassie, you guys have handled this situation with so much faith and grace. It is such an inspiration. And I just remember tearing up actually and talking to my husband about that later and how I felt like a fraud because I didn't feel like I handled it with grace. I feel like I wore a mask really well and that I protected everyone around me, and in private, like, would express my fear and my rage, and I would cry and yell and scream and cuss. But outward, I wanted to be strong for our family, for my husband, for our kids. And I realized in that moment I had let some women down, where I was like, there are women going through things like this that I'm going through, and I am covering up the pain and the messiness of all of this fear and grief and doubt. And I made a promise to myself that I would share vulnerably, that I would not be afraid to talk about the mess or the negative emotions, and that I would forever lean away from toxic positivity. I am an optimist 100%, and I will loop through to gratitude as I have shared every single time. But I will not deny any other emotion that I am feeling as a human, because that will not help me. That will only hurt me and create the feelings of like just stuffing them down. So I realized the power of being vulnerable and actually started talking about my struggles more and how I was feeling. And when you do this with kids, like our own kids, like they started to understand their emotions a little bit better. We created a safe space for them to actually feel their feelings. For women that I work with and coach and consult with, like it started changing everything. And then I also noticed something, especially in the online sales and marketing industry and the business world as a whole, is that there's a phrase that a lot of people share. Share the scar, not the wound. And it actually used to trigger me, and it used to get me a little angry, but that is complete bullshit. Share the scar, not the wound. The thing is, there are people out there hurting, and there's no safe places for them to share that they're hurting. And when you do that, it is an unspoken message in many ways, especially to women. Get your stuff together before you show up and try to do anything for yourself and your life and your business. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I am here to scream from the rooftops. Literally, give me your messy. Give me your quick and dirty. Give me your in real time life experience. I am doing the best I can and figuring it out as I go because that's how I got here. Doing lives and feeling uncomfortable and having so much of this going on internally as the conversation tries to come out of my mouth. There are literally multiple conversations going on at one time in my first few live videos. And if I hadn't started doing that 6 years ago, and if I didn't share that story now, the people that I work with would still have all of those internal fears and feel like they needed to work it out in private instead of getting themselves out there, making a real human connection on a vulnerable level and just being like, you know what? Sometimes life is hard. Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes I mess up. And sometimes I don't feel as confident as everything looks like on the outside. So the more I saw those posts, the more I loved and I respected the people who shared them. So vulnerability is not, please don't get me wrong here, it is not a marketing tactic. It is a human level of genuine care and respect. And it is just an open invitation to walk the walk together without shame and judgment. And that is what I love about vulnerability. So I know we went on a deep dive there. To catch you up and make sure we're pacing along here, we have BRAV. Okay? If you do all of this, you cannot help but evolve. And the evolution of ourselves and our leadership and our inner growth, our personal development, that is where the magic is. When I do any type of workshops, personal speaking, or one-on-one coaching, consulting, like you name it, there is a layer of personal development and ownership in there that when we acknowledge where we're at and we truly live on the fringes of our comfort zone, we are literally living right there in our greatest opportunity of expansion and capacity, and that is where our greatest impact lies. I want to pause there and I want to say that again because that's important. Living on the fringes of your comfort zone is where our greatest impact lies. And I invite you to lean in and discover what that is with me every single episode. What this means is, where are you being triggered? Where are you outside looking in and being that like heightened awareness of yourself, having those internal conversations where, oh, I already know that. That's nothing new. Or I have already done that. I've tried that or whatever. I wholeheartedly believe that life's lessons continue to repeat themselves until we have learned them. And when you evolve and you are open to the opportunity that's presented to you, if someone rubs you the wrong way, why? Get curious and figure it out. If you're uncomfortable going live or putting yourself out there or sharing something boldly, why? Get curious. Not to make yourself like continually like loop into fear or being frozen, but to get curious about what it is, that internal dialogue that's keeping you at not playing full out, at not letting yourself expand and discover not something that you aren't. Like it's literally like letting your whole self out, like letting your whole soul be seen and shine, and being that beacon for other people who need to see and experience what you have, and you creating that safe space, right? It's not for anyone else to be the one sole leader. I wholeheartedly, again, believe that there's leadership in all of us in some special way, that there's a way that you connect with someone, whether it's a young person or a teen or an older person or a senior. Like there's a way that your unique story is going to connect with someone. And when I was leading the purpose workshop at for the women's event, my I'm just going to like share this. This was so special to me. My sister was there, and she opened up about what she could step into to be that safe space for other people, where she has been doing her own inner work and exploring therapy and mindset and doing everything for mental health and awareness. And she opened the door for other women who had any questions, that she was an open book and could talk about it. That is her evolution. She wasn't always like that, but she is embracing the opportunity to be the bridge for other women who may be experiencing that. Not only women, and just on the subject of mental health, we all, like, I feel like as a society we're starting to have the conversation of our internal mind, like the threads that are woven together when we're children, and how we can work through suppressed emotions and the things that we've experienced and we weren't equipped to deal with, and the stories that we believed about ourselves in that moment in time, that we processed it. And for her to be brave enough to share that openly and say, if you have questions, please come talk to me. That is what brave looks like. That is what the evolution looks like. That is what everything looks like when it's all working together. That vulnerable approach of dialogue. So I'm going to check my notes real quick and see where we're at, because I think I touched on everything that I wanted to. Essentially, it's the transparency and the authenticity of life and business, of being human and professional and imperfect and still learning. It's all of those, and it's getting out of our own way and removing our own blocks of our deepest fears and the things that are holding us and others. It's just creating that open dialogue. I am so excited just to see more and more people moving into this and embracing it. Because again, it's not a marketing strategy. I think we need to see more of this in the world. So as we wrap up today's episode, I want to challenge you to ask yourself, where can I be brave? Where can I show up more vulnerably? Where can I expand my possibilities and be my authentic self, and see how more often I can live on the fringes of my comfort zone? So that is today's episode. Thank you so much for spending time with me, and I'll see you on the next episode of Amplify My Impact.